Thank you for coming by Tori Magoo 44. Today is the 28th of July. It is 2010. Check it out. My new things that I got from the gift show with my friend. Thank you very much. There's always fun things to do here in Los Angeles, and there's fun things to do where you live too, which is something people ask me about all the time. And I'm always trying to remind people there's tons of stuff to do all around you. You just have to take it and do it. You have to find out what there is and go do it. So there you go. I've been doing my escape series and transforming back into my life. Someone in my last thing said, "Oh, you're so boring. Why don't you pick it and tell us about it?" And it's like, I did pick it actually, and I am putting that up pretty soon. But, it's one of those things, I don't have any magic buttons or anything that if you do this, everyone's going to walk out the door. I don't have that. If I did, I wish I did, but I don't. So, it's kind of an evolution and a transformation. So for me, I'm just going to finish telling you, this is sort of the end of the series for me as far as me escaping out. And I was with Bob and Stacy staying at their house in Clearwater, Florida, and it was very empty. Their house was very, 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 very empty. They had a bed, I had a bed, there was a dining room table, that was about it. And I was like, no, wait a minute, this guy's like a millionaire, like a super millionaire, and they're living in this house, and there's nothing, right? And so it was sort of like, I was kind of like poking around going like, what's going on here? There's no couches in the living room. There was like, basically, it was very, very bare, which since then they filled it up after that. But this was the weekend. Bob said, you know what, we're going to go up and see my house, right? Which is where he actually lived, up north of Boston in New Hampshire. And remember, earlier on, when I talked to Stacy on the phone, I said, I'm not going to pick it, I'm not going to make videos, I'm not going to speak out. And she was like, that's fine. I'm only doing for you what I wish someone had done for me when I left the sealer. So I was like, okay, cool. So far, I think I was doing a few little pickets in Clearwater, but mostly I was talking to people on the phone and listening to them, helping people and kind of getting to know people around there, that kind of thing. So I don't even think I had picketed yet. I don't think so. So Bob took me up to New Hampshire with Stacy, and if I can, I'll try to find one of the videos of that. But we went to his house, and it was just fantastic. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is a fantastic, beautiful, wonderful house. I mean, and yard, and just terrific. We had a great weekend, really a lot of fun. And then at the end, we're driving back to Boston, and Bob says, oh, by the way, Stacy and I are going to go picket. And I said, I'm not picketing. I told you I'm not going to picket. And so he said, okay, that's fine. And I said, you can just drop me off at the mall. I'm not picketing, right? And again, I'm still kind of like seeing where these guys are at. And he's like, okay, we will. But as we get closer and closer to Boston, I start thinking of all these families and the voices that I had heard, and, people crying, and we're trying to talk to our children, and we can't, and my loved ones, and just all the disconnection and families that have been broken up. And I thought, you know what, I can't just not do anything. I know something about this. So I say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to pick it with you all, but you can drop me off at the Boston org, and I'll just go in and talk to them. And they said, okay. So I said, you guys go park the car. So I go walking into the Boston org, and I walk in, and I say, hey, hi, I'm a Scientologist. And remember, I'd only been out for like a week, maybe 2 at the most. I said, I'm a Scientologist. And I said, well, actually, no, I'm not a Scientologist. I just left the Church of Scientology, so I guess you better call HCO, which is what they call when there's something bad happening, right? And the girl looked at me and she said, well, I am HCO. Oh, wait, I got to get something for you because it's a key crap in this. That's right. Hang on. I think I have it right here. Where is it? Keep crap. All right, hang on. No, that's not. Oh, God, I got so many different things to show you all, but none of these are it. Nope, that's not it either. Oh, God, I got a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm getting there. Hang on. Okay, got it. I knew I had it here somewhere. Okay, so Anyway, sorry about the little delay there. Thank you for waiting. So I walk in and I say, they say they're going to call. I say, why don't you call HCO? And she says, I am HCO. And I said, well, good. Then we don't really have a problem about it. And why don't you guys give me a tour of the Boston org? I knew I was just sort of goofing around, jerking around with them. You know what I mean? Because that isn't how that works. And at the same point, this lady I knew goes, Tori, in reception. She goes, hi. She gives me a big hug. I haven't seen her in a really long time. And she goes, you're in the book. Did you know that? And we had refilmed this. What had happened was they were going to send this out. And, I was in What is Scientology? So this was a smaller version. They were going to say of what Scientologists say about what Scientologists say about Scientology. And of course, it's got all the celebrities, but they had me in it. This is a picture of me then. And it's my little win from Dianetics, or from about my parents, from way to, or What is Scientology? So that's me. And so I see this book, and I think that's the first and last time I'm ever going to see this book. I know it. So I say, do you think I could get a copy of that? And she says, yeah, sure, here, take it. So I say, okay. And she goes, so what are you doing here? And I said, well, honestly and truthfully, I'm here with these kind of big SPs, and they're going to be picketing, and I'm with them. And she goes, well, are you handling that? I mean, have you gone through are you doing a routing form or something, which is a form you're supposed to go through where they basically re-snag you in if they can. And I said, no, that isn't my plan. And I said, I really recommend that you start looking on the internet and learn both sides, right? So I walk outside and I have this whole thing. Bob and Stacy are out there picketing back and forth. And I'm trying to talk to this guy at the Boston org. And I've only been out for a couple of weeks. So I'm still like, Scientology believes in communication, which, it took me a long time to realize the people in the Church of Scientology at this point, they do not. Not really. It's really been twisted around from the days when, I was in it and trained in it. And, so I'm going to put that in there, Magoo dancing in Boston. It's a great video. But Bonker was filming me at the time and filming the whole Picket. And I wasn't really, I was just trying to talk to this guy, get in communication with him. And finally I got really hot, which I think I've told you guys before. I say to Bob, I'm really, really hot. And remember, up until this point, I am not going to say a word publicly. And I say to Bob, I'm really hot. He goes, it's hard work being a suppressive, Tori. I'll never forget that. We're in downtown Boston. And I thought, wow. He goes, why don't you go over to the van and just turn on the air conditioning and cool off? So I think, okay, cool. So I go across the street. I'm sitting in the van. Now, this guy's been filming me the whole time, and he's filming me in the van, right? And I kind of wave at him like, yo, dude, I know the drill. I just got out, I remember, your job and everything else, right? And so I kind of wave at him, right? Like, yo, dude, I got it. But he doesn't stop. He just keeps filming me, and he keeps filming me, and he keeps filming me. And finally, he puts his camera right on the window of the van. Like, I'm over here, or I'm over here, and he puts the camera right on the window. Anyway, long story short, that was it for me. It was like that second, I went, you know what? I have something to say, too. And I walked across the street. You don't see all this about the van and me going in and cooling off and him walking across the street. It's not in Magoo dancing in Boston. But you see me walk across the street and go, hi, Andreas. And that is the beginning of me starting to speak out. And Mark films the whole thing, put it on the internet that night. Andreas calls me and goes, Magoo, this is Andreas. I'm up at the top of a mountain in Norway. You are David Miscavige's worst nightmare. I'll never forget it. And it was the beginning of a very, very wonderful and long friendship with all of us. And little did I know, they declared me overnight. Bunker put it up on the net, and I was declared very shortly after that SP without any ethics handling, without any of the standard tech they're supposed to do. So anyway, happily I joined the ranks of SP officially. So there you go, and people have asked me, how can they become SP, or how can they get their SP declared? Just make it up. That's all they do anyway. That's what the Church of Scientology does. So just printed out yellow goldenrod. There's some that are on the internet that you can copy if you really want to see, their official form or something. But there you go. That's it. Declared suppressive, proud of it, and free ever since. So that's the end of my escape series. Look onto, in the comments, I'll put the link for Magoo Dancing in Boston to watch it. And I hope you all enjoyed this. I love you all. Thanks for watching, and have a great time. Have fun. Peace.